In Palestine, clashes have broken out between Muslim worshippers and Israeli Jewish hardliners at Al-Aqsa mosque in Jerusalem. The confrontation took place after hundreds of Jewish zealots tried to enter the mosque complex to mark the Tisha B'Av fast on Sunday. The Israeli police promptly stormed the mosque using flash grenades and other riot weapons against Palestinians barricaded inside. The Palestinian news agency said that tensions arose when Jewish settlers assaulted a Palestinian child near one of the gates leading to Al-Aqsa Mosque.
Well, to discuss that last report, Alex McDonald from Middle East Eye is still with me, and I'm joined by Ahmed Hamouda, who's Middle East editor at the website Islam21C. Welcome to the programme, both of you. Alex, this looks like quite a serious escalation in an already tense situation.
It could be, but then people say that virtually every other week when it comes to East Jerusalem and Haram al-Sharif or the Temple Mount, depending what you want to call it. Certainly, I do think there is a tendency when people cover the action in East Jerusalem to sort of jump to the conclusion of saying, oh my God, it's the third intifada. The tension is very level and will continue to bubble under the surface. It would require something quite dramatic, I think, now for it to burst into something like we saw with the original Al-Aqsa intifada in 2000. The Israelis are more militarized than ever, more hardline than ever as well, and I suspect that any Palestinian uprising would be put down with more ruthless and in a more bloody fashion than has ever been done before. So, as far as I can tell, the issues still stand. At the end of the day, the Israelis are allowing intense provocation on the third most sacred shrine in Islam, and it is leading what should never have happened in the entire Israel-Palestine issue, which is becoming more and more a conflict driven by a religion, which of course it has nothing to do with.
Ahmed, how do you read it? I mean, Alex is pretty much taking the view situation is terrible, everything normal, or is it getting worse?
I mean, the situation is far from normal, albeit this isn't the first time Israeli occupational forces have assaulted the Al-Aqsa sanctuary. In fact, it was led by Uri Ariel. He is the agricultural minister of Israel, which means that this has become state-sponsored savagery. It's not a conflict between extremist Israelis and between Palestinian defenders of Al-Aqsa Mosque, but it is a conflict between the Israeli government that has become extremely right-wing and savage against the Palestinian populace altogether to remove every remnant of Islamic civilization from Palestine, and so that they can establish their forged capital in Jerusalem. I mean, just 2 years ago, 19th of February, Moshe Feiglin, who was a member of the Israeli Knesset, he toured all corners of the holy sanctuary with complete impunity and with complete support from the Israeli police and soldiers, firing tear gas and rubber bullets at the worshippers. So this has now become state-sponsored ever since the Al-Aqsa Mosque was burnt by Michael Rohan, destroying the Nuruddin Mimbar, which was placed 700 years before this happened. There have been concurrent and brutal attempts at one of the holiest sites in Islam, and it's only getting worse. And this all comes amidst attempts to transform Jerusalem into some Jewish heritage. At least 53,000 settlements in East Jerusalem, which has been declared by the UN as Palestinian sovereign territory. And in 2013, the settlement expansion rate was twice that of 2012. So all of the numbers, all of the figures show that it's getting worse, and there needs to be an international reaction to this that puts Israel at its limits and stops these repeated assaults.
Alex, is that a distinction between this and previous attacks on Al-Aqsa, the fact that it's state-sponsored?
Well, I mean, as I said before, the Al-Aqsa Intifada was kicked off by Ariel Sharon going to the... So, I mean, it has been state-sponsored for quite a long time. Soldiers have protected Israeli Jews going onto the site for quite a long time now. I think that they are going to be less concerned with trying to temper passions in the area as a result of the more hard right government we now have in play. But the issue of the right to the Islamic or Jewish identity of Jerusalem, of course, is one that can't actually be resolved. It isn't the issue. The issue is settlement building. The issue is violence and is responsive to violence. The solution to the question of Jerusalem, of course, is one that actually is in some separate from the rest of the Israel-Palestine issue. But anyway, yes, I mean, I think it can escalate further. And like I said, this current government has no intention of calm passions over this. So I don't think the tinder has been struck yet, but it could be. But it's hard to say at this point what will cause that to happen.
Ahmed, when you're saying there should be an international response to put limits on Israel, where do you think that would come from, and what should those responses be?
I mean, it should start from the UN, without doubt, that, as I mentioned, considers East Jerusalem part of Palestine as part of its partition plan. And that's really a concession that the Palestinian people have made, because at one point, pre-1948, all of historic Palestine belonged to the indigenous people. So the UN needs to draw a line exactly the same way as it drew a line for ISIS when it attacked Palmyra, on the grounds of heritage and on the grounds of them destroying thousands of year old statues or whatever. Well, this is Islamic live heritage that people are worshipping in, and that people consider that at least 1.5 billion Muslims consider part and parcel of their creed. Every Muslim in the world longs to pray in Masjid Al-Aqsa. This doesn't just stir tensions in Palestine, but it stirs tensions across the entire world. And it is likely to cause and be the cause of possibly violent reactions that the world does not want to see because of people's love for Palestine and Jerusalem. So the UN first needs to draw the line. Then the governments of the world, each in tandem, especially those that have recognized Palestine, Sweden most recently, among other non-European nations, non-European Union nations. And of course, there's a huge responsibility on the Muslims and the Arab nations of the world. But unfortunately, they're preoccupied in turmoil in their own countries and their own political instability. But even beyond this, all writers, all bloggers, all political activists need to write, need to put pressure on Israel, need to join the boycott of Israel. We've just come out of Ramadan and people have been buying dates from Israeli occupied territory. This needs to stop. People need to stop dealing with Israel on the academic level. They need to boycott Israel at every level possible, put it under pressure, put it where it should be.
Okay. Ahmed Hamouda and Alex McDonald, thanks very much for your comments on that. And now it's time to have a look at what's been making the headlines on Twitter. The Tunisian government has brought in a new set of security measures following the recent attack which killed 15 people. Kenneth Roth tweets, Tunisian lawmakers adopt